explosiveness, energy, domination, they'll beat you with speed. They'll beat you with precision. They'll beat you with grit. Can the rest of the Big 12 keep up? The Red Raiders sure couldn't.
Straight drop. Has time. Now he's being chased by Neville. Flushed out to the left. Looking. Tries to run it himself. Makes a cut. Neville caught him. Ball's loose. And the Sooners have it.
Now it's a familiar face, donning brand new colors. It's Lawrence, Kansas that plays host to the next stop for this runaway train. It's the Sooners and the Jayhawks in a morning matinee as the road to Arlington rolls on. Get up, Oklahoma. These are your colors. This is your team. This is your show. Live from the campus of the University of Oklahoma, this is Gameday U.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Gameday U. We are here in Lawrence, Kansas. Right behind us is the David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium, the home of the Kansas Jayhawks. The Sooners will be here tomorrow for their game. Now, before we start going into this week, let's take a glance back at last week. I mean, the Sooners dominated. I feel like domination is almost an understatement.
It really is.
I mean, it was a blowout game. Such a great game to watch. What, did y'all see? What stood out to you? Who stood out to you?
So many people stood out. It's
Sure,
hard to pick one. That's the thing. With the atmosphere, with the fan base was electric, and a lot of players had big days. I mean, on the offensive side, we've said it several times, the way that Lincoln Riley has been able to spread the ball around so far this year has been phenomenal. And I think you're starting to see the progression of his system over the years he's been at Oklahoma. Over the last few years, the Bakers and the Jalen years, or the Baker and the Kyler years, you see that RPO start to come up. Except now you're seeing kind of a PRO in terms of Jalen Hurts being able to decide whether to hand it off to the running back and then essentially following the running back, forcing all the defenders over to make a decision over to the right side or to the left side, depending on what play they're running, and then being able to find someone in the middle or on the left side of the field. The way they've spread the ball around is unique. CeeDee Lamb has talked about it in practice or in availabilities, where he's like, yeah, sometimes Coach Riley shows me a play, I'm like, how do you see that? The mind of Lincoln Riley is just growing. It's getting better with age. It's like fine wine. And man, this offense is absolutely unstoppable right now because of it.
I mean, he is playing chess when the rest of the league is playing checkers. I mean,
they're playing like tic-tac-toe.
It's crazy. I mean, like you said, the PROs is a new wrinkle that there seems to be something every year and even every game that Lincoln Riley is able to bring about that no one's ever seen before. I mean, if you can go on Twitter, and Dan Orlovsky does a really good breakdown of Lincoln Riley's mindset, the way that even the offensive line blocks different play to play. A left guard is reading the linebackers, which normally you don't think of the lineman kind of just block who's in front of them. But these guys are so intelligent, he's preparing them so well that even the offensive linemen are making reads and deciding without having being told what to do, what needs to be done. And it's crazy how intricate this offense is.
Yeah, no, it's really impressive, and it just shows the plethora of guys they can rely on. Jalen Hurts is able to run up to the line of scrimmage and really force the linebackers to step up, and it's opening a whole slew of opportunities for the receivers and the plethora of receivers that they have. All those guys are getting touches, and it's really beautiful to see, honestly. It's great football. I'm loving it.
I just want to take a moment to say I appreciate your SAT vocabulary. Every week you bring us a new
I'm learning
word.
words
I
out
got
here.
you, I got you.
I thought learning words was like back in high school, but I'm sitting here my senior year of college learning words out here on a rainy day in Kansas.
Never stop learning.
I get it from Bob Dickey. Shout out Bob Dickey, TV news class. It seems like every day I'm in that class, I write down a word and I'm like, I'm gonna look that up once I get out of here. So that's all comes from Bob.
All right. Well, thank you, Bob.
Yeah, so good to see someone still buying dictionaries.
You know what?
out there.
We do have phones, so
I have the
dictionaries
app,
aren't
yeah.
necessary,
Fair.
but
No,
yeah,
actually, I don't have the app.
They're
that's
making
why.
Webster's is still making money off of somebody.
somehow.
But I guess for my takeaway, I'm going to go with the opposite side of the football. I'm going to go with the secondary. So the secondary, and I think really it's kind of a rising tide lifts all boats thing. The defense as a whole is playing incredibly better this year. 31st in total defense, up from 124th last year. 30th in defensive efficiency, 92nd last year. 20th in passing yards allowed, 10th in rushing yards allowed, 20% third down conversion rate forced by the defense. Those are incredible statistics that I didn't really ever think we would see from a defensive unit on this Oklahoma football team. Honestly, obviously, you got to take into account the people that they've played. Texas Tech with a backup quarterback, UCLA struggling, Houston doesn't seem to have it on the same page.
Yeah.
But the thing to me, and I've got a video here to show you, Texas Tech walks up to the line of scrimmage, and they're making an audible here from the line. The defense looks over as a unit, gets the call from Coach Grinch, looks down all at the same time, and makes an adjustment accordingly to what Coach Grinch is calling. And now you might think to yourself, that seems pretty simple. You get a play call, you change your play. But if people who have watched Oklahoma football for the last couple of years know, that didn't happen under Mike Stoops. Communication and effective communication at that did not happen to where our defense knew exactly what they were doing on every play, every snap of the football. And I think that, more than anything else, is helping this team just play with aggressiveness, play with the effort that Coach Grinch is looking for.
Yeah, that clip is really spectacular. You really get to see all those guys on the same page at the exact same time, understanding the play. It really is impressive to see.
What do you yell from the sideline to get their attention?
Hey, or you can whistle.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a slew of things
You can
do.
hear a whistle in the video. Like they literally, and they're all looking over at the same time, and they all look down at the same time. It is, for people like ASMR, it is fun to watch. Like they literally just all like look at the word at the same time and then move where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
It is such a cool video to watch, and it literally just inject it into my veins. If you're a Sooner fan, you want to see that every single down, every single time. I love it.
Hey, one thing with the secondary, too, I wanted to point out, I think you're starting to see the roles for each member of the secondary. You know, under Alex Grinch, your DBs, your corners are going to be your ball hawks. Those are all the guys that have gotten interceptions from the team, have been other than Ryan Jones, the linebacker, Trey Brown, Jaden Davis, and Buki Radley-Hiles.
Well,
all
Parnell
secondary
Motley
men.
could have had maybe one of the easiest
He could've.
interceptions I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He dropped it. So obviously still work to go, but if I'm going to call him out on last week's show, I feel like I got to give him props for playing well when I call him out.
He's been balling. Parnell Motley has taken extreme strides. I got the opportunity to talk to him on Monday, and he was saying that his mental toughness feels like it's at a level it's never been at in the past, and it's really boosting to see a lot of these guys on the defense side of the ball really get their footing, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, and the safeties, sorry. I wanted to touch on one more thing. The safeties are starting to really develop together. Delarian Turner-Yell and Patrick Fields now are second and third on the team in tackles, kind of act as that safety valve. Safety, I guess I wonder why they call it that.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun
The more
intended.
you know.
But they're very good in that regard. Don't allow a lot of deep plays, and that definitely helps the defense kind of regroup.
Yeah, and that play on Delarian Turner-Yell, he chases Sir Roderick down after a 58-yard run on the
That's huge.
2-yard line.
No player would have done that on the defense.
That was
That's
Lincoln's
effort.
favorite play.
It was.
Yeah. I mean, it's impressive. It just goes to show like the amount of effort they're putting in, and they stop them. They end up only getting a field goal.
It's huge.
It's so impressive to see that kind of effort being put from the defensive side of the ball. But my biggest takeaway includes the defensive side of the ball and the offense. It's penalties.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's
Someone's
one thing.
got to be negative.
I've got to say it. I've got to say it. I'm sorry.
Got to.
If we're going to be that team that's playing January 1st and beyond, we've got to fix these penalties. It's been something that's been abysmal to see. Although we did see some penalties not go our way on the
Another
offense.
big, we're loud because you had another big word in there.
I
You know,
say
abysmal.
it seems like I say abysmal every week.
No,
He does, but it makes me
That was not
smile
too
every
crazy.
week.
That's
so.
not too. Keep going.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Didn't mean to get you off your rock.
Nah, you're good. Lincoln Riley was clearly agitated the last time they had a penalty. There were a few that didn't go their way on the offense.
Sorry, just laughing at agitated.
They had a few that didn't go their way, and I understand that. They had an offensive pass interference. those are such bang-bang calls. It's tough. Lincoln was clearly frustrated, but there were so many other penalties throughout the game that it's like, come on, guys, holding, defensive holding. It just needs to be tuned up. If they're going to be the spectacular team and get the rat poison, as Jalen Hurts says all the time, out of this team, they need to correct these penalties.
Yeah, and one of those, I think the differentiation between aggressiveness and just mental mishaps is, I think, something they're working on. Lincoln Riley doesn't mind some of the aggressive penalties as long as it's not over the top, like, excessive. He likes that aggressiveness. He said if the dog doesn't bite, then you don't have a good defense. Yeah. But at the same time, those mental mishaps that you were talking about, those are the things that definitely need to improve. I remember a drive against UCLA, or against South Dakota, where they had false starts on back-to-back plays.
Yeah.
That's stuff like that can't happen in the future.
And against UCLA, it was back-to-back defensive offsides. It's just mental mistakes that when the game is on the line and you're 28-28 late in the fourth quarter, it's mistakes you cannot make. 4th and goal on the 1-yard line, or 4th and 1, on the 11-yard line, and you need a big stop from your defense. They go double snap, double hike, you jump off sides, first down. Those are mistakes you can't have. And Parnell Motley, last game, he had a taunting penalty. It's things of that nature. You've got to realize you guys are such an elite team, and to put yourself in that dang near perfect category, penalties are one thing you need to erase.
Yeah, and to defend Parnell Motley and a little bit of the team on these aggressive style penalties, it did have, after the Kennedy Brooks hit that we all kind of saw a lot on Twitter this past week, just because of how the dirty hit on Kennedy Brooks.
Yeah.
That defense was fired up, and they all talked about it after the game, and then in availability later in the week, that they were playing with a little edge, a little chip on their shoulder that we hadn't seen up until that point. And to me, it was a little bit encouraging that they have that edge, that they have that fire in them, but you also got to be able to have that reined in, like contained aggressiveness. And if they are getting those dumb penalties, the ones that are like taunting, or the ones that are like, I don't know, not like fighting, but, like doing just things after the play that are unnecessary.
Yeah.
That is 100%, I agree, something that they need to clean up.
Yeah, if they can elevate their play after a penalty, why don't they have that before the penalty and throughout the entire game?
Yeah, 100%.
That's something Coach Grin said. Something to think about.
Have to control that fire.
Yeah.
That's the key. Well, even though it's Kansas, the Sooners don't want to overlook them. We've got Texas going into next week. There's a lot on the line for them when it comes to that game, but they are still focused against the Jayhawks.
A big sense of urgency certainly going into this week. Both for just our improvement as a team, and then I think playing a very much improved Kansas squad. That's pretty clear to everybody after the way they've played early in the season.
You can't really adjust to our offense. The only thing you can do is just try to contain us. And Coach Riley is, like I said, he put us in the best position he can for us to just be successful and dominate the field. And guys like us, we have playmakers all around the field on offense.
They're a physical team. Definitely with Les Miles, they want to run the ball. They're a tough team. They got a good back, some nice O-line, nice size on the O-line too. So they're a physical team. It's definitely gonna be a hard game in the trenches. So we have, as a defense, we're gonna play some hard-nosed football this week, which I'm kind of excited about to see where we at with our toughness.
You can never underestimate anybody, because whenever you underestimate somebody, you give them the upper hand. So I try not to look at big games, things of that sort. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult, with crowd size, momentum, things of that sort. But I try to attack everybody the same.
The depth is our number one thing. We all need to work hard. We're only as good as our weakest link. I know you guys heard that before, and that's definitely true.
Excited to get up to Lawrence and play this game on Saturday. That's it.
Well, guys, we heard it straight from their mouths. It's so important for a team of the caliber of OU's to not overlook someone like the Kansas Jayhawks, especially when you have such a big game coming up right after. It's easy to have kind of that anxiety and to want to just focus on what's next and be like, "Damn, I got that in the bag." But that's bitten the Sooners in the butt before. So what do you guys think about the things that they had to say about staying focused?
Yeah, that mentality of always wanting more. That's what they've emphasized all season long. That's what Jalen Hurts has emphasized all season long as the face of the team. It makes sense on defense, but on offense, it's so hard to nitpick what they're doing right now. They're first in the country in offensive yards per game by nearly 100 yards. UCF is at second place at 568.5 yards per game.
That's crazy.
And they're not satisfied. How can you possibly not be satisfied with that? I would be over the moon right now. and yet they still want more. And that hunger, I think, is definitely going to pay them dividends in the long run. But as for tomorrow, one thing specifically that I'm excited to see is the running back group. You know, Trey Sermon, Kennedy Brooks, Ramondre Stevenson haven't combined for more than 23 carries in a game so far this year. They've all been fresh. They've all been productive in the amount of time that they had. And I think Lincoln Riley's just been waiting for a game like this with the weather that we've had to throw them in the fire, give them a bigger workload, see how they handle it, and see which running back steps out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, this is a game. I mean, people forget last year. It was almost the exact same scenario in Kansas the week before Texas, and people forget that game was close.
For a little bit, it was.
It was close, and
closer than it should have been.
Closer than I imagined that this game will be, and closer than I imagined anyone was comfortable with.
Right.
And like when we're playing when Oklahoma was playing Kansas, it should be a walk in the park, and I think we're gonna see that tomorrow. But if they let this be a trap game, if they look too far ahead, and I'm going to talk later about West Virginia, Texas, which is a perfect trap game for Texas. Like, if you aren't focused, and if you aren't trying to do the things that they're talking about, if you're not eliminating that rat poison, then it could be a dangerous situation. And, like, people, again, Les Miles is in here now. This is not some pushover team that's going to go winless this year.
That's what I was saying.
Like, you week one were very hot on Kansas.
I wasn't saying they were going to be
hot.
I wasn't saying they were going to be anything special. I was saying
mild.
that they. I was saying that the culture was going to change.
Like
and it has.
If this is like a bowl of chili, like you're the spicy chili, and I'm like what the white people are putting in with like some salt, you know? Like, it is not anything crazy. Like, but still, he's the Mad Hatter for a reason. He's going to try and do something crazy to get his team in a position to win. And if we're not careful, if OU's not careful, they could be susceptible.
First of all, not a big chili guy.
It's
Appreciate
all right.
the
You know,
reference.
to each their own.
Yeah.
Tailgaters around.
But I don't think I mean I understand where you're coming from and what you're saying about them being susceptible to any kind of margin that might be unfavorable for Oklahoma. But I don't think that this game is going to be anywhere close. And I love the mentality that this team has. They're in first place, and this is how a lot of people think life can be applicable to sports. Whenever you're the best at something, you got to look intrinsically, and you've got to think, how can I better myself and not look at other people, and how, like, to battle them. You know what I'm saying? You're trying to better yourself, and the only way to do that is look within the team, and they're looking inside to see how they can better themselves. And as I said earlier, penalties. That's one way they can improve themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to quote one of my favorite movies of all time, Remember the Titans, Coach Oast demanded perfection.
Yeah.
And I think that if the Alabamas of the world, I've talked about this before, like Belichick, Saban, like they demand perfection from their teams.
Yeah.
They do not accept anything other than perfect from anyone at any level in any team. Defense, offense, special teams, anything. And if you're coming into a game like this, it has to be you expecting yourself to be perfect. And if you don't hit that, look at what you're doing and see how you can get to perfect. Because perfect is what we're going to need to be playing on January 1st, like you mentioned earlier in the show.
I agree. We played T.C. Williams in high school. That high school.
Really?
Yeah, it was by my area. It was cool. We went to that high school, and they had, like, all the murals up, and it seemed like one of the only accomplishments that school had.
I mean,
did you win?
pretty big accomplishment,
yeah,
though.
of course. Come on. What? It is a big accomplishment.
Well, guys, that's all the time we have for this segment of the show. Whenever we come back, we're going to hear from our very own Meredith Mulkey, and then we're going to bring it back here to the rainy day that is. It's raining, but not on our parade. Don't go anywhere.
OU's defense is likely gaining another Speed D member. Over the last few weeks, there's been talk of true freshman Trajan Bridges switching positions. Now, Bridges was recruited to OU as a wide receiver, but could soon be a Sooner safety. Playing on the defensive side of the ball is nothing new for the freshman who played many roles on his high school team. From receiving to special teams and even playing some defense, Bridges did it all, recording 12 tackles and 1 interception his senior year. Now at Oklahoma, Bridges has had success early on the offensive side, completing 4 catches for 56 yards and 1 touchdown in the Sooners' first 3 games. Last week, Bridges made his defensive debut against Texas Tech in the third quarter when he assisted in 2 tackles. Coach Grinch is looking for some depth on his defense, especially at the nickelback and safety positions with junior Trey Norwood out for the season. Bridges could be the right fit for the Sooners secondary, but nothing is final.
Like I keep saying, it's an ongoing deal, and we'll kind of look at what's best for him, what's best for us, and kind of make decisions as we go.
If we ever move somebody to a permanent position, I'm going to tell you guys, we have not done that with Trajan or anybody else. We're always experimenting with different pieces on our team at different places, but that's not something I'd be willing to talk here in front of everybody, including all our future opponents.
Now, Lincoln Riley won't say which side of the ball we'll see Bridges on today against Kansas, but it's likely we'll see him on the defensive side, as Coach Grinch said he was practicing with the safeties earlier this week. We'll see if Bridges can add to the dominance the Sooners D has demonstrated so far this season as they look to keep their loss column empty for another week when they take the field in Lawrence, Kansas today at 11. Meredith Mulkey, Game Day U.
Thanks, Meredith. I love hearing from her each and every week. Always great stuff.
Yeah.
She's the
Well,
goat.
we're going to take a look around the Big 12, specifically what happened last week. First, let's break down what was the TCU Kansas game. I mean, we're about to have the Sooners play
Not much
this.
to break down.
You know, what did you see? What are you going to pull out from this game that might be important for OU to keep in mind?
Yeah, I mean, TCU's game plan to Kansas was perfect. And it's very similar, actually, to kind of what Oklahoma does, at least on offense. When you look at the box score from Saturday's game, 11 different players caught a pass for TCU. And they're spreading the ball around. It's hard to keep up with one player and hone down on one player because they're able to spread the ball around. Their rush offense, 319 yards and 4 touchdowns, average over 6 yards a carry. And like I said earlier, when you have a game like this, it's going to be under the rain. That is perfect for Oklahoma, who's got much better running backs than TCU does. And then on defense, it's pretty simple. Shut down Puka Williams and force Carter Stanley to make some throws. They did that. He only finished with 12 yards on the ground and a reception touchdown. Carter Stanley with 84 yards. I mean, that's as simple as it gets for Oklahoma. And their defense is a little different when it comes to game plan for that, but that's how you do it right there.
I mean, I think what you pointed out was something that I kind of wanted to hit on too. Like, this team had an incredible. Like, TCU came out with an incredibly balanced attack against Kansas. It didn't matter if they were running the ball and they were passing. And TCU has had, as they've shown up until this point this year, nowhere near the capability on offense as Oklahoma has. So if I were a Jayhawk, I would be scared to see the numbers that Jalen Hurts and this offense is going to put up. TCU put up 306 passing yards and 319 yards on the ground. That balance is something that I expect Oklahoma to come out and try to achieve. They've done it a lot up until this point this year where Jalen Hurts has done almost as much on the ground as he has through the air, and especially as things continue to go throughout the game and we get into the Tanner Mordecai drives and we get into the Spencer Rattler drives, which I imagine will appear again.
Probably third quarter.
And we'll see if Spencer Rattler, I don't know if they're going to try and redshirt him, whatever they're going to handle him, but Mordecai is coming out for sure. But TCU held Kansas to 1 of 11 on third downs, and it's something that I mentioned earlier with the defense improving in the last block. 1 of 11 on third downs is not going to get you very far in any college football game, much less against a team with the caliber of Oklahoma and the way the defense has improved. So I expect a very balanced offensive attack because Kansas doesn't seem to be stronger in one area, the rush or the defending the pass. So I imagine that Lincoln Riley is just going to have a field day eviscerating this team and dissecting where he can find matchup. I got some big words
catch up.
too.
We got some competition.
I think the biggest word I said was Lincoln.
And we were riding in the Lincoln on the way down. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I really don't think there's much of a chance between OU and Kansas. But we saw that against TCU Kansas.
Yeah.
They were abysmal against TCU. TCU was struggling to find an identity and a quarterback 3 weeks into the season. They go out, played Kansas. What was the final score? 55-14? Pathetic.
A lot to a little.
Pathetic.
A lot to it, yeah.
This Kansas team needed improvements in a slew of ways. They had, 6 turnovers, I believe? It was a very, very pathetic performance from Kansas, and they're going to need to come out with a whole lot more than they had against TCU if they're going to try and pose any type of threat against Oklahoma.
Yeah, like you mentioned, 6 turnovers up into this point on the season, tied for 118th in the country in turnover margin.
Yeah.
That's not good, I would say. 118th out of 130 is not ideal for what you want your football team to be at. But I would say, especially for Alex Grinch and this defense, they are going to be hungry to make that even worse this year, or this game, this week. They are always searching for turnovers. That's a big key for this defensive unit. They are going to come out, and they are going to be looking to turn the ball over as much as they can against this Kansas team. And really, the dogs got to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you talked about
Let's take a pivot now to another Kansas team, K-State, they played OSU. Kind of break down that game for us. What stood out? What looked bad? What looked good?
I mean, Oklahoma State's looking kind of sneaky right now.
I told y'all. I told y'all they were going to be good.
Hey, that game Bedlam in December. I mean, it's gonna be an intense game for sure. Spencer Sanders is maturing with each and every week.
Yeah.
One thing I want to see from him in particular, he's got a stud in Tylan Wallace. He's got a stud in Chuba Hubbard. You guys, I'm sure, will cover those.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to see in particular is him looking for other targets. And in particular, Dylan Stoner is a guy I'm looking for who needs to step up. He's second on the team with 19 catches, but in that game against K-State only had 1 catch for 5 yards. Tylan Wallace had 145 of Spencer Sanders' 153 passing yards on the day. And that, against better defenses, is not going to work, no matter how talented Tylan Wallace is. They know that they can shut down one person and force that quarterback to find these other weapons. So that's one thing that stood out for me. But, I mean, this is encouraging from Oklahoma State for a team that hadn't decided its quarterback until basically the day before their season opener.
Yeah.
They're 4-1, and they're a ranked team now.
Yeah, and I said this, like I said from the beginning, I thought Oklahoma State was going to be a lot better than people thought, and I think they're proving that. But really, it comes down to if they are going to go where Spencer Sanders will take them. Mm-hmm. They could have easily won that game against Texas. Like, they were in it the whole time. If they make better plays, and if he doesn't throw, to use a word you like, an abysmal interception early in that game, it might have been one of the worst picks that we're going to see all year. Just coming from a freshman. I mean, he's a freshman, and he's going to make those mistakes. But against Kansas State, he used his legs better than I think he has in previous games, especially against Texas. He was making plays on the ground, which just adds another dynamic to that offense that Mike Gundy can use. They obviously made the top 25 this week, which I think they deserved, and hopefully they don't continue this trend of one Big 12 team sneaking into the top 25 and then losing the next week. We've had Iowa State, Kansas State, in back-to-back weeks, sneak back into the top 25 and get knocked out right away. But I agree with you, Sam. I think this Oklahoma State team is showing encouraging signs. I mean, Chuba Hubbard is, of the players on teams that aren't national championship contenders, easily the best athlete and probably the only one that is going to contend for a Heisman. Will he continue to put up the crazy numbers that he's putting up at the moment? I don't know, but
I doubt it.
he is definitely doing an incredible job carrying this team for the
when you're averaging 200 yards rushing a game, I feel like that's kind of impossible to keep hold of for 10 games, or 12 games, or however long it may be.
I don't know. It seems like recently, as of late, one thing we've noticed with OSU is they've had some talented running backs with Justice Hill and Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah.
And for Chuba Hubbard to step up after Justice Hill comes in, it's so impressive to see. One thing, the takeaway I saw from this OSU game is that they're a real team. They're coming to play, and they're not gonna. This isn't gonna be a game at the end of the season that we kind of gloss over like we will today against Kansas. It'll be one of those games that we've really got to game plan well, prepare for, and come out on all cylinders. Spencer Sanders has been impressive, and some of the throws he looked extremely good, accurate downfield, making good reads, quick decisions. And that's what you got to do as a quarterback. It was a little discouraging to see so many of his yards come from one receiver, but I still think he was accurate, and he's going to be a great addition for this team.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that with that point that I was talking about, though. I mean, that's just freshman things. 4 players have receiving touchdowns for Oklahoma State this year. Only 4 compared to Oklahoma, who has. I've stopped.
Too many to count.
That's
really.
a tough standard.
Like more than we have fingers on our hands.
But that's the thing. That's the difference, not only between the talent level, obviously, but the difference between a freshman quarterback like Spencer Sanders and a graduate transfer quarterback like Jalen Hurts, who has been in college football playoffs each of his first 3 years. Yeah. It's just the progression of a quarterback.
Yeah, and I mean even though they only kind of really are only spreading the ball out not very well right now, they put up 526 yards against what was the 25th ranked defense in the country. In Kansas State. Like, Kansas State's not a pushover. Like, they are a good football team that, again, they're kind of overshooting what a lot of people projected for them this year as well. But they're a good football team. Like, that is not a pushover win for Oklahoma State. Like, this is a very impressive thing, and I think, like, they were out in front the whole time. It was never in question, even despite a weather delay. Like, there was never any doubt that Oklahoma State had this game in the bag, and I think that should put the rest of the Big 12 on notice.
Yeah, Kansas State really needed Bill Snyder to head out the door to have a kind of revival of the program.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but it
they got to save that. They got to save that Bill Snyder appearance game for some special.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe when Oklahoma comes to town, but.
Yeah,
I feel like that'll be a magical moment.
They needed that was the kick in the butt that they needed, and it's good to see that they're kind of on good terms again.
Yeah.
We've kind of touched on it already about OU not looking past Kansas because they do have Texas come next week. Big game, always a big game. Now, they're playing West Virginia today. What are we expecting out of these two teams? West Virginia hasn't been doing so great thus far. Texas has. But what do you think is important to keep an eye out for, especially going into next week when the Sooners will be facing the Longhorns themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I'll touch on West Virginia for a little bit. First of all, I mean, you talk about the game last year, an absolute thriller, and now you're looking here and you see Texas a double-digit line, and you're like, this isn't what I thought it was.
Double-digit line, but what is it, like 10?
It's only
10 points.
I honestly thought I was going to bring this up. I thought that was going to be a lot bigger. I expected it to be
in Austin. That's probably closer to 15, 16
it's in
points.
Morgantown, yeah. So to your point, that is probably why. But it's only 10 points.
Terrible.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
I can't imagine they don't cover that spread. But.
Yeah. To touch on West Virginia, first of all, we got to talk about Austin Kendall, who's looked good, not great, kind of like his team has. I mean, the 3-1 kind of is a misnomer because if you look at the teams they play, they squeaked out against James Madison. Not a bad win against North Carolina State. Kristen's already getting frustrated.
I'm not frustrated. I'm just like some little highlight misnomer. We all got the words.
I threw it out there. I did it.
Big words, people.
I
today.
appreciate you.
You were all smart. Congratulations.
I hope my mom is watching that. No, Austin Kendall has looked solid as a quarterback, completing just over 65% of his passes, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on the year. Kind of a game manager quarterback. He should be progressing, but you haven't seen it a ton, and it doesn't help that their rush offense is absolutely miserable right now. You'd think it'd be better because they lost their quarterback and their top 2 wide receivers, but their rush offense averaging 107 yards per game and 3.3 yards per carry. Not great. That's not very good at all. I know Texas is not very deep in the secondary right now, being hurt by the injury bug. But I'm not sure that Austin Kendall is going to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. So to me, the rushing game has got to step up. Kennedy McCoy and Martell Petway are players that were at West Virginia last year that had good seasons in the backfield, and yet here they are today and not really doing much for them.
I mean, it really just speaks to, honestly, I think it all comes back down to Austin Kendall, because if he can open up this defense the way that he has yet to prove that he can against a solid opponent, then he can open up those running lanes. He can get these linebackers out, put a couple nickelbacks in, make lanes for his running backs, and I think it all stems back to him. West Virginia, like you said, like they're 3-1, but they got slapped around by Mizzou. Like, it was ugly.
Yeah.
Ugly. And I think I don't want to call you out, but I'm pretty sure you had West Virginia at least competing in that.
At least competing.
They did neither cover the spread nor compete. And speaking of the spread, like we said, a 10-point Texas favorite I think is criminally low to Texas.
Yeah.
I think that this game is going to be a walk in the park, but like I said earlier in the show, it could be a trap game. It is easily capable of being a trap game for Texas if they're looking too far ahead to Oklahoma next week.
Yeah, if you think I didn't bet on Texas to cover the spread, you've lost your mind. Because 10 points, they better do that and more.
The one time the over
this is going to turn into a game.
I hope so.
Take it to the bank. Take it to the bank.
I think this is going to turn into a betting show.
I'd
be down for that.
Wait, we've got to have
by
a
the
segment,
end.
a bad beat segment, because West Virginia has provided a lot of opportunities for it.
Our producer's standing right over there.
Let's make it
We'll have a
happen.
conversation.
We'll talk during
I don't want to
break.
look unprofessional and look off camera, but Parker.
Well, we can discuss it when we go to break because that is the time we are at now. We're going to toss it over to the studio. Brooke and the gang are going to give you their heroes and their zeros. We'll be right back.
Are
they all at the same time?
Welcome back to the Gaylord Hall Studios here on the campus of the University of Oklahoma. I'm Brooke Mirsky, and you are watching Game Day U. We'll send you back out to Lawrence at the top of the hour, but right now, we'll take a look back at the top 5 plays from Week 5 in college football. Here's Parker Thune.
Hey there, Brooke. We kick things off with a little trickery as Duke visits Virginia Tech in Blacksburg. Quentin Harris to Jalen Calhoun to Deion Jackson. The double pass leads to a walk-in touchdown, and that would open the floodgates as the Blue Devils destroy the Hokies 45-10. Next up, Clemson trying to preserve their unblemished record in Chapel Hill. 1:17 to go. The Tar Heels go for the jugular with the 2-point conversion, but the Tigers are all over it. They stonewall UNC and hang on to the lead. The last-ditch onside kick will be unsuccessful, and Clemson escapes 21-20. Ohio State and Nebraska. Buckeyes already up 14-0. Adrian Martinez trying to get the Huskers back in it, but look at this play. No, that's not Justin Fields, it's the other number one. Jeffrey Okudah comes up with a sensational interception on his back. It was all Buckeyes from there. They stomped the Big Red 48-7. Out west in Corvallis, Stanford, and Oregon State. Hey, how would you like to explain to your defensive coordinator that you got mossed by a quarterback? Look at Davis Mills get up off the reverse pass, and come on now. It's not like the Beavers were going to recover from that. What a display of athleticism from the junior signal caller, and that would give his Cardinal all the cushion they needed. Stanford wins 31-28. Last play of note this week, Utah State's kick return team put in the work against Colorado State. Savon Scarver is going to field this ball 8 yards deep in his own end zone, and is this textbook blocking or what? Scarver goes quite literally untouched through the coverage, makes one cut to get by the last man standing, and it's as easy a special teams touchdown as you'll come by. With that spark, the Aggies would eventually take home the victory, 34-24. That's all she wrote for the top plays of Week 5. Which was the best? Well, you decide. Go vote for your favorite on the Gameday U social media platforms. Brooke, Kemper, Shannon, and Cal. Which play stands out to the four of you guys?
Thanks, Parker. Like you said, I'm here alongside Cal Day, Shannon Earhart, and Kemper Ball. Guys, how are you feeling?
Pretty good. No place I'd rather be on a college football Saturday, Brooke.
Yeah, ready to talk some football, huh?
Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah,
okay, well, let's go into our first segment, Heroes and Zeros, guys. I want you to tell me who you think was super hot this past week and who you think could have been way better. Cal, I want to start with you.
Well, when talking about heroes in college football, it's hard to look farther than Chuba Hubbard, the sophomore running back out of Oklahoma State. He's putting together a spectacular season. It really came together in the Kansas State game last week. If the video goes, you'll see that he had 25 carries for 296 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown. Here he goes. He's been a workhorse for him all season, plowing through what many believe to be one of the better defenses in the Big 12. Kansas State got exposed. Here he goes, 84 yards. Not even going to be touched by a defender. All the way to the house, Chuba Hubbard, 296 yards last week in the Kansas State game, just shy of 300 yards on the season. He leads college football with 938 yards, and he leads it by like 200 and something yards. 10 touchdowns on the season. That's also the most in college football so far. Chuba Hubbard making a strong impact, not only to be a Doak Walker candidate, but also quietly entering himself into the Heisman race as college football's maybe one of the most impressive running backs of the season.
I agree with that. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, my hero of the week is Julian Okwara, a solid defensive back for Notre Dame. It's actually he's a junior, I'm pretty sure, but he's a physical ball player, especially against Virginia when they played. And then, if you see the video, he had his first 3 sacks of the season and twice forced fumbles, which is pretty good for him. He stripped Perkins on his first sack, recovering the fumble himself, and then his third sack was picked up and returned for 23 yards. Julian Okwara, I think, is a pretty underrated player, especially in the win against Virginia. As I said, it was 35-20. Notre Dame ranked 10 and Virginia ranked 18th. It was a pretty good game for Notre Dame overall. I think the defense really carried the team for ND, forcing 5 turnovers total. And the defense actually sacked Bryce Perkins 8 times. I think that Julian Okwara really showed out against this team. And I think he had a good game overall. He's a physical player, you guys. Very underrated. But
I like the defensive player pick.
Yeah,
It's a nice change of pace.
I know. I think so, too.
I like that. For me, I feel like someone had to take him. It's Devontae Smith, the Alabama wide receiver. Someone had to. He had just an absolutely unreal game, 274 yards and 5 touchdowns. I think you got to say it's easily the top performance of the week. I mean, if you look at this kid, did most of his work in the second quarter. Hope this highlight reel is long enough to fit everything this guy did, which I can tell you it's not, because he was all over the field. He more than doubled his yards and touchdowns for the season in one game. He tied an SEC record for receiving touchdowns in a game. This was a blowout. I don't think anyone expected this Ole Miss game to be close. But when you got your probably 3rd best receiver on the roster having a game like this, taking off, getting extra room, yards after contact, pushing plays into the end zone, Alabama looks tough to beat, especially when they're getting production like that from their 3 guy at the receiver position.
That's right. Most receivers are lucky to get 5 touchdowns in a season. He gets it.
5 in a game is unbelievable. Like, I can't even comprehend that. It's crazy.
It's got to set some records.
Those are some pretty heroic guys. Now, on to the zeros portion. Cal, let's start with you. Who was your zero?
Well, last week, College Game Day was in town for the Ohio State-Nebraska game. It was a really hyped up one. Everyone was really excited about it, except for one guy that didn't seem to quite get things rolling, and that was Adrian Martinez for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. It was a disaster. So here we are in prime time on ABC in front of the world, and it is intercepted by Jeffrey Okudah. That's all right. It's only the first interception. Still early in the game. Still time to make it up. Third drive of the game, and it's tipped, and that's probably the most spectacular interception I've seen so far this season. Still hurts. Nothing good going again. Down 17 now in the second quarter. Another chance. That one, that's no excuse for that. Just a horrible game there. Adrian Martinez finished with 47 yards passing on the day. 3 interceptions, all to 3 different Ohio State defenders. And part of his sloppy play, the team was trailing 38-0 at the half. Really hard to come back from that. Adrian Martinez did not look good at all. I wouldn't be surprised if Scott Frost and company are considering a change at the quarterback position. Just a disaster, especially on prime time in front of everybody. So Adrian Martinez, my zero of the week.
Did you say 47 total passing yards?
47 total passing yards in the game.
That's embarrassing.
That's not ideal.
That's crazy.
Not on national TV.
Yeah, no. Shannon, what do you think?
Well, my zero is another quarterback, Texas A&M's Kellen Mond. He didn't play a good game at all. The lack of run game was just, again, embarrassing. I keep using that word. But he had key misses to all of his receivers, which really just hurt the Aggies. Against Arkansas, just wasn't a hot game. He threw 14 for 33, just not too good. And he was sacked 3 times. And again, they only ran 56 yards on 21 carries. It just did not look good for the Aggies at all. And he's supposed to be a dual threat, but I just don't see it right now. Kellen Mond did not show out. And I just think he's one of the biggest disappointments of this year. And he's supposed to be a leader, but just his skill set is not there. I don't know what's going on with him, but it doesn't look good.
Not even Kellen Mond, but Texas A&M's been such a disappointment this year.
Such a disappointment.
If you're Texas A&M, you have got to throttle Arkansas in that game. It cannot be as close as it was. Absolutely unacceptable.
This is way too close.
Exactly. I was keeping up with the game while watching OU, and I was like, what? When Arkansas was in the lead for a good amount of the game.
Just embarrassing.
And I feel like Kellen
Almost
Mond
didn't
should
even
be
make
like
sense.
a key asset, but just isn't.
Yeah.
He's not doing anything.
Kemper, who's your zero?
Well, funny you mentioned the word disappointment, because I'm going with the guy who I think has been the biggest disappointment of the college football season. Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now, Trevor didn't have a bad game last week. He was playing against North Carolina, but he made some poor decisions, some bad pocket, a lot of bad pocket awareness. But just overall this season, Trevor Lawrence has regressed considerably. It looks like he spent more time over the offseason worrying about his hair than he did about improving as quarterback. Yeah, I said it. I made a hair joke. He had 206 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown in their 1-point win over UNC. That is not a tough game. Shouldn't be a tough game. This is a team that Clemson needs to blow out. And a lot of that comes from Trevor Lawrence at the quarterback position. He has dropped his completion percentage. He's thrown as many interceptions as he did all of last year in these first few games, and he's 34th in the country in yards. This is a man who came into the season as the Heisman favorite, not just in the contest, as the favorite. He has completely taken himself out of the Heisman race. He's not playing a bad season by any means, but the expectation is very, very high for Trevor Lawrence after that national championship game. He hasn't even come close to living up to it.
There's the phrase about the sophomore slump. Out of the quarterbacks in college football, I would not have expected that from Trevor Lawrence,
Absolutely
especially
not.
with all the receivers he has at his disposal.
It's crazy. And I'm a Trevor Lawrence fan. Like, I want to see him succeed. Like, I do like Trevor Lawrence. It's just I'm so shocked by the regression from him that I've seen this year.
I like Trevor Lawrence. I think he's doing a good job, but
I had high hopes too.
Yeah, they're still winning, so
they are still winning. He's still pulling it out. It's not pretty.
1-point win. North Carolina, I feel like really should have won that game. They're a toe stub away.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna wrap it up at the desk for right now. Plenty more to come this morning on Game Day U. When we come back here in the studio, we'll go 3 and out with Cal, Shannon, and Kemper. Stay with us as kickoff between OU and Kansas approaches. Welcome back to Game Day U. I'm Brooke Mursky alongside Kemper Ball, Shannon Earhart, and Cal Day again. These three are ready to tackle some of the hottest topics in college football. Let's dive right in with 3 and Out. I've got 3 questions, and these analysts have 3 answers, guys. The first one I want you to talk about is, who do you think has the best chance at the college football playoff? Cal, what do you think?
Now, you're probably going to call me crazy, and don't throw me to the flames just yet, but I'm going to say Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish have the best chance right now at this minute of the college football playoff, and it's for a couple reasons. Right now, Notre Dame has played its toughest game of the season. They went on, they lost to Georgia. It was a good loss, if there's such thing as a good loss, only to 6 points on the road in prime time in Athens. Now, last week, they've had a statement victory over an undefeated Virginia team. And it was a pretty dominant win. Now, the remaining schedule includes Bowling Green, USC, who has quarterback problems, Michigan, who doesn't look great, Virginia Tech, who's struggling, Duke, that probably is going to be the toughest game, Navy, Boston College, and Stanford, that's already lost 3 games. Notre Dame has real potential to win out, and at 11-1, the committee's going to have to look at the statement win they had. And if Georgia and the rest of the SEC plays itself out like it probably will, there's going to be multiple losses in that conference, and it's such a close loss that I think Notre Dame has the best shot to make the playoff. Ian Book is improving as a passer, only throwing 2 interceptions on the season, and of course their defense is playing very stout as well. Notre Dame, watch out for the Fighting Irish. They could sneak in there. Nobody's really paying attention to them. It's early on. They lost early, and that was the time to lose. So I'm going with the Irish.
I think you're right that early loss helps them, and it is a loss to it's a good Georgia team that they lost to. But I think the problem is with their schedule moving forward. I think you've undervalued that Michigan game. It is not easy to go into Ann Arbor and get a win at the Big House. But that Duke game is going to be tough. But with those games, with those being their premier games left on the schedule, they don't have a huge opportunity for a big statement win. Like, not enough to, and especially without a conference championship, I just don't see it being enough to lift them in over a fringe team like an Oklahoma or an Ohio State.
There's a good shot Virginia could make it to the championship game in their conference. There is a good shot if they play Clemson. There's also opportunity, if Michigan picks it up. So they're trying to get a statement win. So
I think people have written Michigan off too early. I think that's going to be a tough game for the Irish.
All right, Shannon, I want to hear from you. Who do you think has the best chance?
Okay, I'm going to have to say Clemson. I know that we just talked about Trevor Lawrence, but I think that he's a good player. And let's not forget that they're reigning champs. They're also undefeated. And just a solid team all around. And now, before you start on how they have such a soft schedule, listen to this. The committee has shown us in the past that they don't reward a team who plays a hard schedule and has a loss over a team with an easy schedule and all wins. Even though the committee tells us they're going to reward a hard scheduled team, they never come through. For example, in 2016, OU made a hard non-conference schedule and had losses to both Houston and Ohio State. Washington, on the other hand, has scheduled Rutgers, Idaho, and Portland State as non-conference teams and went 12-1. They still made it to the playoffs with a loss. So if a team like Washington has a weak schedule with a loss and gets into the playoffs, then it should be no problem for Clemson, who has a weak schedule and goes undefeated in the playoffs. They're also currently have a 20-game winning streak, which is still phenomenal. And I think that Trevor Lawrence in 2 years is up for a Heisman. So I'm going to say Clemson, for sure, 100%.
They are so lucky to be playing in the ACC conference.
They are lucky. I know. But you have to talk about how soft their schedule is. But what I just said, I mean, it's good. I think they're going to make it to the college football playoff.
I mean, yeah,
well,
what's your?
I don't like it, but I do agree with you that Clemson has a good shot. But they can call me a homer all they want. I'm going with the Oklahoma Sooners. That is my team to make the college football playoff. The Oklahoma Sooners have been amazing these first 4 games. They're doing exactly what you want to do with a schedule like this. We can talk about the Clemson schedule all we want and the soft schedule. Oklahoma's schedule is not that impressive either. But what they're doing is they are beating up on these inferior teams. And that's not what Clemson's doing. That's where the difference is. I think both of them make it. I think from the current top 8 teams, I think it's going to be 4 teams from there. But Oklahoma is the only team currently ranked in the top 4, or in the top 8, that does not play another team in the top 8. Everyone else has got another really tough schedule. Oklahoma plays only 1 top 25 defense this season.
Are you saying they have a soft schedule?
I am, but they're making the most out of their soft schedule. It's not Clemson's fault they have a soft schedule. It's not Oklahoma's fault. You play who's in front of you. But what you're supposed to do is beat up on those inferior teams. blow those teams out. And Clemson isn't just dominating these games like you would expect the defending national champions to, with Trevor Lawrence playing quarterback. And that's where I fall off a little bit on Clemson and why I'm so high on Oklahoma right now. They're playing in these easy games, but they're playing very, very well. The offense is showing no sign of slowing down. And the defense has made more adjustments than I thought they would. I had been saying all year that the defense is a year away. I still think they might be a year away. But they've looked so much better than I thought they would this year. They are so much improved.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be able to carry them to the playoff.
Oklahoma needed to be a bend but don't break defense.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're seeing so early on right now. So I think if they can sustain that, they have a really good shot.
We never needed to be a top 5 defense in the country. With how explosive our offense has been the last few years, we really just need to be a top 60-ish defense to get the job done. And I think we're well on our way.
Okay, guys, for question 2 and 3 and out, I want to play off question 1 that I asked you guys. So I want to know, which team do you think is most likely to play spoiler for the team that you previously picked? Cal, I think you kind of already talked into this one, but what do you think?
Well, yeah, Kipper hit the nail on the head there. It's going to be the Michigan Wolverines going into Ann Arbor in a couple weeks. I think it's on October 26th, and going into that game, it's going to be a tough one. This is a rivalry game. Last year, Notre Dame came out victorious in South Bend. But Michigan's coming off a very impressive win over Rutgers. I mean, take that for what it's worth. But I don't think that's a statement win, but it's a confidence booster for the Wolverines. But the bad news for Michigan is they will play Iowa and Penn State, which are two of the better teams in the Big Ten, before they square up with Notre Dame. Shea Patterson had 276 in that Rutgers game last year. I think that if they can play better and start to figure out their offensive identity, this could be a very impressive win for Notre Dame. But this will be a trick game. It's going to be a tough contest. It is every time in this rivalry game.
I think, like I said earlier, I think people wrote off Michigan way too early after that Wisconsin loss. I mean, it's not like they lost to Citadel. Like, it's Wisconsin. Wisconsin's ranked in the top 8. They're a really good team. They've got a Heisman candidate running back. I think Michigan could still finish the season strong and definitely give Notre Dame some trouble in that game.
But they did almost lose to Army, though.
They did almost lose to Army. But hey, we almost lost to Army last year. OU almost lost to Army. So
we'll see.
Well, my pick, I think honestly that Clemson, the only thing keeping them out of the college football playoff is themselves. But if I had to pick a team, I would go with Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons. They're the only team that's ranked in the same conference as Clemson. And they have wins against solid teams like Utah State, North Carolina, Elon, Boston College, Rice. And they gave Boston College their second loss of the season, and then gave Utah State their only loss, which was a really good game. As we can see, they've won 3 of their last 5 conference games and 3 straight ACC road games, which I think they've just done really well overall. It's also their first time since 2008. I was 8 years old then, that they've been in the top 25. So watch out, because I think that they're on a roll. The Demon Deacons are a solid team to look out for against Clemson, the only team that may be a contender, but I don't know, you guys. I would say that Wake Forest is a pretty solid team besides Clemson, which could only beat themselves, but it depends on how they play.
I think you're exactly right about Clemson beating themselves. I think that is the best.
It's the mindset.
It's absolutely is. And after such a close game against North Carolina, I think it's very reasonable to expect that there could be a game that they stub their toe and fall off a little bit and just, take their eye off the ball for 1 second, and then that's game over.
Yeah.
For me, I think it could be Florida State. I think that game's coming up in a couple weeks. Florida State's another under-the-radar team. Of course, they didn't look good early in the season, but they're starting to come along a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kemper, what do you think?
Well, for me, picking Oklahoma, I feel like everyone would kind of expect me to pick Texas, but I'm just not sold on Texas. So I'm going with Oklahoma State. And it's for a couple reasons. One of them is Cal's guy Chuba Hubbard just looking like an absolute monster. I'm terrified to see what he does to our defense, even though our defense has improved. But that guy scares me. The other thing that happens is Oklahoma State is still going to be hunting for a Big 12 champion spot in the Big 12 championship game themselves at that point. We're their last game of the year, and whether they lose a couple games and are still hunting for their Big 12 championship, or if they've got a couple losses on their schedule and they are now have nothing to lose, they're bowl eligible or they're not, and all they want to do is ruin their rivals' season. Oklahoma State would love nothing more than to spoil Oklahoma's chances at a college football playoff spot. that kind of motivation has always scared me. I'm always way more uneasy when I go into the Oklahoma State game than when Oklahoma's about to play Texas. Even when Texas is significantly better. It's just something about that in-state rivalry and that last game of the season, them trying to play spoiler to us. That's a huge motivator for a team, and that's something that Gundy can absolutely play off to get
They're
his guys
also
out.
on the road, too. So
Yeah, it's in Stillwater, which is,
it's going to be a good game.
Oklahoma wins in Stillwater a lot, but it doesn't mean it's easy to win in Stillwater.
Yeah, and Mike Gundy doesn't have a great track record against Oklahoma, but he does have some impressive wins whenever you're really not expecting it.
And a great mullet.
Well, I don't know about that.
I'm a fan.
Okay, guys. Question 3 and 3 and out. Let's reflect on the month of September. Now, with that being said, who do you think is one coach in the hot seat after how their team played?
Ooh.
Well, not just reflecting in September, but reflecting all through the end of last season as well. The seat's getting pretty hot for USC head coach Clay Helton, and it's really it's probably not going to improve much better. The USC Trojans made a lot of changes in the offseason, bringing in a new offensive coordinator who then went on to become the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. But then they settled with Graham Harrell, the North Texas offensive coordinator. But it really hasn't helped much. And now in his last 28 games, Clay Helton is 8-20. So it hasn't been impressive, especially it's been tough times. Tough sledding. Now, last week, they're coming off a 14-point loss to Washington. They've also had bad losses to UCLA, California, and BYU at the end of last season, spilling over into this season. They're in the middle of a quarterback carousel as well. I think 3 different quarterbacks have played for him. Matt Fink not looking as sharp as many would think. And there's also reason to think that there's a marquee coach on the market. Urban Meyer is available. There's already ties to him being rumored to becoming the next USC head coach. So Clay Helton, it might be time to start getting some suitcases. I don't know, maybe a for sale sign. He might be on the way out out of Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna have to put Jim Harbaugh on the hot seat. I mean, there's a lot of hype going around him, but he just hasn't had a solid season at all. Even though he does win a lot, he never wins big games, you guys. He's just not been showing out at all. And their record against top 10 teams is actually 1-9. So their loss against Wisconsin on top of that just adds to the pile of stuff that I think that he's just not been doing too good. It's hurting their ego as a team because he's just not doing well with anybody all around. He's supposed to be good with quarterbacks, but Shea Patterson just isn't performing. And then their backup, Dylan McCaffrey, is now out with a concussion, so I don't know what he's supposed to do about that. And they still have to face Iowa, Penn State, Notre Dame, and then crosstown rival Michigan State. And we can't forget Ohio State, who he can't seem to beat. It just hurts my heart to see him lose every time. But I just think that there's uncertainty all around the field, and he's just not good. He's upsetting his fan base, and former players are even saying stuff about Jim Harbaugh and how he's not doing well. So I have to put him on the hot seat for September. I'm hoping October brings something new, but
I think it's going to be hard to get Jim Harbaugh out of there. Honestly, I mean he's a Michigan legend. They love him there, and you can say all you want that he hasn't beat Ohio State. Michigan hadn't beat Ohio State since before he was there either. It's been a while.
He was supposed to bring them to beat Ohio State, and he just hasn't. He's been there for 5 years and still hasn't shown anything great.
The big question is, who does Michigan think that they can get that's going to be better? Because I know that Urban Meyer is probably not going to go to Ohio State.
No, there's no way.
All right, well, that's a wrap on hour 1 for Game Day U. After the break, we'll send you back out to Shiloh, Christian, William, and Sam in Lawrence. As the college football calendar flips to October, there are a plethora of big-time matchups on the slate. We've got to look at the ones that will mean the most in college football playoff picture. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. We are still out here. The rain has momentarily stopped.
Yeah.
Luckily for us.
It's only a matter of time.
Right.
We are in Kansas.
Now.
That's the first bad thing I've said about Kansas since the show started.
Before you guys get going, there is some bad news. We don't have a game or a show next week because of the OU Texas game.
Aww.
Cotton Bowl is not as welcoming as the Jayhawks has been. But because of that, let's take a wide look at the month of a whole, since we are not going to be here next week. What kind of games are you looking forward to? During those games, what is making you want to look, forward to them? Sam, which game is marked on your calendar?
Yeah, I mean, November and December are all about where championship teams are made.
Sure.
That's the saying. But this game in late October, I think, could make or break an entire conference's chances at making the college football playoff. I'm looking at Ohio State and Wisconsin on October
Badgers,
26th. Sule says go Badgers. We'll see
Badgers.
how it goes. It's in the Horseshoe in Columbus. And
That's a
when you
tough
look
place.
it's a tough place to play. And when you look at Ohio State, I mean, they are flying on all cylinders, firing on all cylinders, excuse me. This team reminds me a lot on offense of the Oklahoma offense the first year that Lincoln Riley was in. And what I mean by that is, yes, they have all the pieces in the world. They've got Justin Fields, who's a phenomenal player, who's electric on the ground and with his arm. They've got talent at all the skill positions. They've got an experienced offensive line. The main question was, is Ryan Day, in his first year at head coach, going to be able to put it all together? Oh my goodness, he has. This team is one of the top teams in the country in terms of offense, one of the top teams in the country in terms of defense, allowing less than 9 points per game. Granted, like Oklahoma, they really haven't played anybody so far, but encouraging signs compared to last year. And then you look over at Wisconsin, and Wisconsin
Tread lightly now. Tread lightly now before you get into my Badgers.
Wisconsin is a team that I kind of was a little on the fence about going into the season. The biggest question has always been quarterback play. Can the quarterback step up? The defense has stepped up. Did you know the defense has allowed 4 touchdowns and scored 3 of them?
Wow.
Did you know that the defense is first in the country in points per game allowed, 3rd down conversion percentage, and defensive yards per game?
I did not
That's
know
a
all
stout
that.
defense. Those
Did
are
you
fun
know the
facts.
Wisconsin Badgers also have arguably the best running back in the country from the last 3 years in Jonathan Taylor, who has already got off to a flying start this
And
year?
Jonathan Taylor.
Second in the country, just under 140 yards per game through 4 games this year. And the quarterback, Jack Cohn, has been an upgrade. He hasn't been fantastic. He hasn't been all-worldly, but that's not what Wisconsin needs from him.
Sure.
You know, they need him to be that efficient game manager quarterback. He's like Hornibrook, only better. That's Alex Hornibrook last year.
I mean, better than Hornibrook is not a very. It's a pretty low bar.
Bar's set pretty low.
But
it's not like he's fantastic.
I see your point.
But he's better than Alex Hornibrook was last year. And that was kind of the final puzzle piece they needed to really be a more dominant team. They're 4-0 so far. Ohio State's got a pretty easy couple weeks leading up to the matchup versus Michigan State, then a bye week, and then at Northwestern before Wisconsin. Yeah, Wisconsin's got at home versus Kent State, at home versus Michigan State, and then at Illinois. So both these teams are going to have a couple weeks to kind of gather themselves and prepare themselves and fine-tune things. And is Ohio State real? We'll find out October 26th in the Horseshoe.
Yeah. I mean,
It's a big weekend.
I swatted on that Wisconsin take, and of the takes that I have thrown out on this show, easily the most successful up until this point. So I really got to ride the Badgers to Big Ten glory because they are the only team that is really good coming through for me at this point. Washington's not looking very good. Iowa State's not looking very good. It's a rough time, but Wisconsin's coming through for me. So let's go Badgers. The game that I chose, I think, is the biggest game in the Big 12 every year. It's the one we've got earmarked. We've been talking about it a lot already. The biggest game, in my opinion, in October is the Red River rivalry in Dallas, OU Texas.
Today.
It is, in my opinion, the granddaddy of them all. We came from the Rose Bowl earlier this year. It is the biggest game on the calendar year for the Big 12. For a lot of schools, it has trickle-down effects all around the country. Oklahoma, Texas. Offensively last year, Oklahoma looked really good. Shocker. I mean, our offenses looked good in a lot of games last year and this year up until this point. The problem was not a lot of defensive plays. Trey Brown, obviously, in the Big 12 championship game against Texas, had a huge play, the safety that everybody remembers. I was on the front row, like literally the closest person that you could be to that play, and I was losing my mind. It was a great game, but the defense looked shaky, as they did all year, and that is why Dicker the kicker was able to come in and win Texas that game. The line I saw, I don't know how accurate this is, but a line that I saw reported was 12.5 points for Oklahoma going into that game, which I think is disrespectful to Texas.
I agree.
But I don't think there's any way that Oklahoma covers that, but we've discussed this on the show before. Can this game be can this game be a blowout? Can it be a tie? It could be anything. It could be, and that's why it's so exciting to me. Is Texas going to be able to reload on the secondary? Because like we've talked about, their depth at that position has been really weak up until this point. They've had a lot of injuries, especially going into this week. They'll have to deal with that at West Virginia and then recover again to play Oklahoma. these two teams are still very much in the college football playoff hunt, especially Oklahoma. A loss doesn't kill Oklahoma. I think it kills Texas. So Texas is going to have their back to the wall.
Yeah.
Like, they are going to be the animal in the corner, whether or not they fight the way that they need to get that victory. And Oklahoma, like we've said, if they're going to play on January 1st, if they're going to be the team that everyone expects this team to get to with everything improving, they're going to have to be able to come to these games and perform on all sides of the football. So I don't know how you can't be excited for a game like that. It's going to be electric one way or another.
I can't disagree with you on that one. But I think putting any animal in the corner with a dog mentality is a bad idea. So if Texas goes into this game with the animal in the corner mentality, well, it'll be a lot different score than the 12.5 spread that it's looking
Especially
like.
a Longhorn. Those things are big. I don't know. That's a big corner.
That's a big corner.
Yeah.
And Uga the Bull, actually.
That's like an
Burn,
oval,
basically.
I'd have to say, with a Longhorn.
Yeah.
But we talked about October 26th being a big weekend, and I can't help but echo that sentiment in the slightest. My game to watch, is going to be LSU Auburn. I think that game is going to be a huge game. Because personally, Auburn, I think, is pretenders. I think Bo Nix is a great game manager, as Sam had mentioned.
Don't
Jack
tell Caroline.
Cohn is with with Wisconsin. Yeah, I agree. Caroline, I hope you're hearing this. I think Auburn is not nearly as good as they have led to be. They are game managers in that sense that they are able to run the ball, run the clock down. But I don't think that Bo Nix is really going to be able to thrive in the way that he has in the past. He's been good, don't get me wrong, but it's not like he has been the reason that this team has won games. You see them running jet sweeps, end arounds. You see them involving a lot more things in their game than just the passing side of the ball. So maybe Bo Nix can show me that he's a little bit more than that. Javarius Whitlow only has like 400 yards on the season, so he's not one of their primary guys. And they spread it out a little and a lot, excuse me.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they're gonna have what it takes. On the other side of the game, yes, Ed Orgeron would say, "Go Tigers." I think LSU is real. I think Joe Burrow has improved his game tenfold. This guy's throwing touchdowns left and right. It seems like every day I check the ticker at the bottom of the screen, and he's throwing another 7 touchdowns in a game. It's been so impressive to see. They were able to dominate Texas in that game. Score 45 points. It's been impressive. They are averaging 56 points a game. Everywhere you look, Joe Burrow has got guys that he can target left and right. Number 2, I can't remember, his name is failing me, but he has been so impressive to see in this offense. I really love LSU in this game, and I think come October 26th, LSU's taking the win.
Yeah, I mean,
really quickly,
no doubt in my mind.
I want to hear from each of you on your own game that you've highlighted. Who do you think is going to win? Sam.
As of right now, I'd go with Ohio State at home in the Horseshoe, just
right.
because that atmosphere is so hard to win in. I think Wisconsin hasn't, they got the blowout win at home against Michigan a few weeks ago, but this is going to be their first true road test. So if they respond well, I mean, Wisconsin's a CFP team in my eyes.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Solid prediction, Will.
Yeah, and I mean, to his point, like, any of these games could go any way, and that's why they're so important. Like, Wisconsin, if they get their game plan right, could win. Auburn, if Bo Nix manages the game well, he could win. I have Oklahoma winning in 2 weeks. Shocker there. But I think
that's
the team.
Sule's word of the week. Shocker.
I mean, we did drive through Wichita, so go Shockers.
Yeah.
I think Oklahoma.
Stopped
if they
in Wichita.
I ate some donuts in Wichita, so
Shout out to the donuts.
Some good donuts, by the way.
no kolaches. No kolaches.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's okay, guys.
Yeah, I have Oklahoma winning. I think the defensive improvement puts Oklahoma in a grade above that Texas just can't match right now, especially as banged up as they are.
Yeah, and I think LSU is going to take this. As I said, I don't think Auburn's going to be able to match LSU's offensive efficiency, and I think Joe Burrow will have a field day against this Auburn defense.
But after all the noise about Bo Nix, I thought Jesus himself had sired him. And then he
that's
came
what
down
Caroline
as the
would like us
savior
to
of the
think.
college football world.
I mean,
Here you go.
Bo Nix has been known to watch this show, so you better be careful about what you say. He's responded to a couple things on Twitter about.
Hey, Bo, do something.
All
about
I'm
it.
saying,
Prove
I'm
us wrong.
calling you out.
This
is
Early
my
call out a
game
little
call
earlier
out.
than
Bo,
you were
what you got?
supposed
to.
Show
All
up
I'm
against
saying-
LSU and beat them.
all I'm saying is the last name Nix has 3 letters. So does the word God.
And the word win.
Coincidence, I think not.
That is a big leap.
goodness.
I don't know. As the rain picks up behind us, I think Christian is more like raining on Auburn's parade right now than he is anything else.
Listen, it's not me doing it. It's Auburn doing it to themselves.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, that's all the time we have right now. We're going to toss it over to the studio. We're rolling out a brand new segment. It's going to be the Saturday Superlatives. Don't go anywhere.
Thanks for being with us this morning on Game Day U. I'm Brooke Mursky. Coming up in a few minutes, we will send you back out to Lawrence for final predictions as OU prepares to take on Kansas. For now, I'm here in the studio alongside Kemper Ball, Shannon Earhart, and Cal Day. Guys, still doing good?
Yeah, we're still here.
Back in studio. All right, we're starting a new segment called Saturday Superlatives. So I'm just going to ask you guys 2 questions. So starting off, who do you think is the best or most impactful freshman in college football?
Well, you know, I actually went to bed early last night. I didn't catch the ending of the UCF-Cincinnati game, so I'm interested to see how that score went. But anyway, for my most outstanding freshman, it's Dillon Gabriel, the quarterback out of Central Florida. Now, this is a freshman quarterback that's played very well so far in Josh Heupel's system. Only 2 interceptions on the season before playing Cincinnati last night. Thrown for over 1,300 yards and thrown 14 touchdowns. He's got some great receivers at his disposal. Look at that one there all the way. And of course, they have played some low teams like Connecticut, and that's helped boost these ratings. But so far, Dillon Gabriel only going to grow in the Central Florida scheme with Josh Heupel as his coach. Josh Heupel is very good at developing quarterbacks. So I think that so far, Dillon Gabriel's been the most impressive freshman quarterback for me.
I think he has a lot of upside. I think he can develop real well for that UCF team. Same way that Bortles did. I think playing in that system for a long time. I don't know if he'll ever be as great as Bortles, because Bortles was fantastic in college, but I do like his upside a lot.
And of course, last night, you know, he learned a lot on the road.
Absolutely, it's a learning experience.
3 interceptions last night. It's really not going to make it look that great, but
it's a growing experience.
It is. So those games are important to learn. They
Absolutely.
fought back. They fought strong.
You got to lose to know how to win.
You're right. They hung in there. Remember that.
Okay, well, my best freshman, I'm going with best instead of important. My best freshman is Derek Stingley Jr. He's a cornerback for LSU, a really good player, and then, again, a true freshman. He plays right in front of Grant Delpit, who's the safety for LSU, the best in the country, and he can play tight coverage because he has Grant Delpit behind him. And already in the season, he has 10 tackles, 1 interception, and 7 pass breakups. He's such a solid player, and actually in high school as a senior, he won the Louisiana Gatorade Player of the Year in 2018, and he was actually one of the finalists for the National Player of the Year, and I honestly think that he's shaping up to be one of the best cornerbacks in the country. I mean, he's so good, he breaks up every play. It's just a solid guy, and football actually runs in the family for Derek Stingley Jr. If you've ever heard of Darryl Stingley, who played for the Patriots and actually got paralyzed a couple years back. It's his grandfather, so I'm glad that, I know it's sad, but I'm glad that he gets to watch his grandson play, and he's just been a solid player so far. I think he's shaping up to be one of the best in the country already. So.
Absolutely, he's gonna help that LSU defense for so long. That defensive backfield is gonna be scary.
Dangerous for sure.
He's got a good coach too. Dave Aranda really knows how to develop defensive backs.
Oh yeah,
he'll be solid.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for my pick, I went with someone who I was pretty excited about before last week, but after the game against Clemson, I'm all in on Sam Howell, the North Carolina freshman quarterback. Got a little bit of Baker Mayfield to him, honestly. I see that from him. He's had 2 huge come-from-behind wins, including a win against South Carolina where they were trailing 20-9 in the 4th quarter. He's got over 1,000 yards passing. He's got 11 touchdowns. North Carolina has only scored 15 touchdowns this year. He's got 11 of them. He's only thrown 2 interceptions. That's more touchdowns, less interceptions than the guy I was talking about earlier, national champion Trevor Lawrence. He's got so much upside. He's got a lot of potential, and Mac Brown is doing a great job with building that program right now. And with Sam Howell as the central building block of that Tar Heels program, I think they could be pretty darn good in the next few years. I think they could be competing for ACC championships in a few years.
I wouldn't put it past him, honestly.
No, absolutely. I think Mac Brown, you know, he's got a ways to go with that team, and you know, getting some more of his guys in there because he's only been there a couple years now. Or is this first year of the year? I mean, but so he's got to get his guys that he recruited in there. But Sam Howell is just a great place to start. If you've got a quarterback like that who's just, when I say he reminds me of Baker, he's just a winner. Like he's just got that winning mentality. There's something about him. I believe in him when he runs on that field.
Baker 2.0.
I like it. I'm behind him. I'm all in on Sam Howell.
I was gonna say I think in 2 years he could be one of the best quarterbacks.
I absolutely think that he's got a very high ceiling. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, on the second half of Saturday's superlatives, I kind of want to know who you guys think is the best group of 5 team.
All right, here we go.
Cal.
Well, where I picked Dylan Gabriel, I also picked the Central Florida Knights, of course. Of course, like I said, haven't seen the score from last night's game, got a good night's sleep. But before that, omit the Cincinnati games. UCF's been one of the most dominant group of 5 teams in recent memory in college football. This year, they still have a very dominant offense. Greg McCrae, their running back, 394 rushing yards on the season. Of course, 5 touchdowns to accompany all those rushing yards. Gabe Davis, their outstanding receiver. They've also got Trey Nixon and Marlon Williams, who played really good. Their defense has forced 5 interceptions early on in this game. Now, they do have the bad loss to Pittsburgh, and of course, last night a loss to Cincinnati, but they should have a good shot to win out. They've got games in the American Conference against Tulsa, and of course, they've still got to play their divisional games against a season finale with the South Florida Bulls. But so far, I would still take Central Florida against most group of 5 teams.
I don't think so.
You don't
I don't think so. My top pick is going to be Boise State, not Boise, but Boise, which I've learned. Anyways, UCF has a loss, actually 2 now, if you didn't see the game. I saw the end of the game.
Spoiler.
Didn't look too good, yeah. But Boise remains undefeated while SMU is still far behind them as well. They're seeded 24 while Boise is ranked 16. And Boise State, if you can't remember, that they beat FSU in Tallahassee coming back from 18 down, scoring the last 23 points, winning the game. And they did that with true freshman Hank Bachmeier as his first game ever. He's a solid quarterback who's only thrown 3 picks this season, which is good for a true freshman. It's phenomenal, honestly. And their leading receiver, C.T. Thomas, he averages 20 yards a catch and already has 3 touchdowns. And now, for you old-time Sooner fans who might not like this, Boise State did upset OU back in 2007, which wasn't too good. But I think that they're a solid contender, and I think the best out of the Power 5.
Well, man, you had to throw that in there, didn't you?
Yeah, you really had to bring up those 7 Fiesta Bowl.
I know,
really?
It wasn't good. It wasn't good. It was
still
a while.
haunted
It was
by
so
that.
long ago,
I'm
but
still
they
haunted.
did.
I remember that
They
Statue
did
of
beat them.
I'll remember that Statue of Liberty until the day I die. That's a low blow, honestly. For me, I'm going with the Sonny Dykes-led team down in Dallas. I'm going with SMU. I am all aboard the Pony Express right now. I am so high on SMU. They've got Sonny Dykes in his second year, looking like he's got these boys ready to play. Their quarterback, who you Oklahoma fans might remember, Shane, Texas's back Bouchel, the guy from that Texas game against Notre Dame, and he's looking great. He just beat the snot out of his old coach Charlie Strong at UCF. He had 226 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. And SMU is 5-0 for the first time since 1983. They had 1 close win with Arkansas State, but in their lesser opponents, you know, your Texas States, your North Texas, your Charlie Strong-led USF, they've blown them all out. They've looked so strong. They're ranked for a reason. I think SMU can absolutely, their goal should be to sneak up into a New Year's Six bowl. But most importantly, they got the best trophy in college sports back. They got the Iron Skillet Trophy back. They just throttled TCU.
Was it deserved?
Oh, I think it was well deserved. They killed TCU. They forced 6 turnovers in that game, which is why I am ready after that win over TCU. I'm ready to say SMU. Best college football team in the state of Texas.
Oh.
That is my hot take. Check the scales. That's a take-quake right there.
That is hot.
Best team in Texas.
We'll just end on that hot take. As promised,
Pony
we'll
up,
kick
baby.
things back to Shiloh. Christian, William, and Sam over in Lawrence. When we return, kickoff between the Sooners and the Jayhawks is just about 90 minutes away. Our coverage continues from David Booth Memorial Stadium next.
Welcome back. The rain has really come back with a vengeance. It's
So is the
also
wind. Oh my
very
goodness.
chilly.
Yeah.
But we are here and we're doing it for you at home. And we're suffering to get it done.
For the people.
Be thankful, please.
All right, last block for us here. Best block. You know how it goes. Give me your final word, your call out, your score predictions. Sam.
My final word for the game is going to be prepare. This game is all about preparing. As you can see, you got to be able to prepare for this atmosphere. This is not a sunny day, 85 degrees in Norman, Oklahoma.
We're not in California anymore.
We are in Kansas, people. It is different here. And as a result, the team has to be able to prepare for that. The running backs have to be able to prepare to be ready for a bigger workload. The receivers have to prepare for maybe not getting as many touches, but making them count. The defense has to prepare to jump on Puka Williams early. Do not let him find his groove. And finally, they've got to shut down Carter Stanley, which shouldn't be so hard, but in this weather, anything can happen. We've seen crazier, so prepare for this game.
My final word is obliterate. We've talked a lot about big words today. I'm using the word obliterate, and for one reason and one reason only. This should be Oklahoma obliterating Kansas tomorrow on that field behind us. There should be no reason that this team should have any way to even sniff Jalen Hurts. The offensive line should be preparing, like Sam said, to keep him clean, keep everybody fresh, and obliterate this Kansas Jayhawks team, which doesn't hold a candle to the talent that Oklahoma has. If they come out and they are prepared and they are ready mentally to handle this game, there should be no question what's going on.
I don't think there will be, and I think we'll all hear that in our final scores later on. But my final word is going to have to be discipline. This team has got to be disciplined. Don't get me wrong. They are amazing in all facets of the ball. But discipline and penalties and all aspects of the game is one thing they've got to fine-tune if we want to see them in the college football playoff. And we all do. Everyone does. Everybody wants to see Jalen and Tua. So increase your discipline and get us there.
Well, preparation, obliteration, and discipline all has to start with one thing. My word is laser, as in laser focus. We've got a big game coming up next week, and it's easy to overlook someone as small as the Kansas Jayhawks. You've got to stay focused. If you give them an inch, they could take a mile, especially when the pigskin is wet. And that is most likely what we're going to be dealing with tomorrow. They've got to come in with their head on straight. They have to come in. It's business. This is a business trip, and they're here to lock it down and get her done.
Get her done.
All right.
Let's get this done.
Speaking of go
It's
get
like
her.
it's gotten colder over the last 3 or 4
It
minutes.
has. I can,
don't
like,
The
I
longer
see
we
my
talk
breath.
about Oklahoma beating Kansas, the colder our takes are getting. We need some hot takes, Sam.
And
Can
if
you
you
provide something? I need some in the oven to warm me up.
Throughout the show, you can see me slowly
Inching forward.
get more on edge and get
Yeah.
to the closer to the edge of my seat.
I think the
rain
more we
is
talk about it,
coming
the
after.
worse, the colder it gets.
Let me dive
Right.
into my.
All right,
into my
go.
call.
Let's go.
Let's get her going so we can
Let's
get
go.
out of here.
All right,
Get her
my
done.
call out, the big man in the middle, Neville Gallimore. Now, after the game against Texas Tech last week, Lincoln Riley said immediately after the game he wasn't exactly satisfied with how the defensive line played. Wasn't as disruptive as it had been in past games. And that really starts with the man in the middle, Neville Gallimore. He's a freak athlete. He's a leader on that team. He's a captain for a reason. He was a little absent against Texas Tech. I needed more from him. And when you've got Puka Williams, arguably one of the best running backs in college football, lining up against you on Saturday, you got to be ready to do what it takes to shut him down. So when you look at the starters on the outside, Ronnie Perkins is a sophomore. LaRon Stokes is a junior college transfer. Neville Gallimore is the man in the middle. He's the leader of that front seven, or that defensive line at least. And he's got to be more effective, I think, getting off the ball on Saturday.
I agree 100%. And my call out is a bit out there, but if people will stay with me, I think it'll make sense. My call out is Reese Munchow, the punter. And here's why.
Hey.
You're going to get so bored on Saturday that you are going to...
And so wet.
Our kickers are a bit on the hot seat right now. Take some time, drink some water, stay hydrated. You'll probably kick the ball twice at most. You got a great average so far. Keep it up, man. You're doing a great job. I literally had to go. I couldn't find Reeves Munchow highlights up to this point this season. Because, I don't know who takes highlights of a punt. But I literally had to go to his huddle, like his recruitment video, to find video of Reeves Munchausen punting. We have
Shout out to
video
Huddle.
of him warming up against Texas
Yeah,
Tech.
copyright huddle.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it. But literally, just stay loose over there. Get some stretching in because you're not gonna have to do a whole lot, especially in the first half.
I mean, drink some water. All you're just gonna have to do is look up.
Yeah, stir the Gatorade. Keep your teammates hydrated. Maybe like
Really dry.
find a way to contribute because your punting is not going to be necessary against Kansas.
Yeah, you talked about him not being able to, or will not have an impact in the first half. One guy I think that will have an impact in the first half is R.J. Proctor. He's a guy who's going to be replacing Eric Swinson, who I believe will be down under a significant amount of time under a leg injury. R.J. Proctor, you're going to need to step up. This will be your second game starting at left tackle. You started against Houston. This will be your second time in this offense starting. I really want to see you get downfield and get ahead of these blocks. We do run a lot of screen plays and PROs. You talked about the linemen having to make a lot of reads in this new and revamped offense. Not really new and revamped, but new and improved offense.
Continually evolving.
Continuing evolving. That's a great word for it. I really want to see you show that you can take Eric Swinson's job and run with it, as Dak Prescott did with Tony Romo.
Ooh. I like the comparison.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to call out a guy you haven't seen that often this season. In fact, you saw him for the first time last week. Kenneth Mann, we need you out there. We need you to be a leader. Last season, you started kind of breaking out. We started seeing you make some plays. I want to see what you got.
I want you back.
All right,
All right.
concert. Okay.
Cool. All right. Like I'll see y'all later. There's a bus over there. I'm gonna head out. But
Okay.
Sheesh.
All right, guys.
No support. in
Well,
this
we're
group.
going to round out this
I
block
don't even know
now.
what song you were saying. You said like 5 words.
I don't know. It's like the Backstreet Boys or
All
something.
right, Sam, what you got for us? Final score. What you
Yeah,
got?
who's winning final score?
Yeah, I'll make it quick. 62. Oklahoma wins 62-16. This isn't going to be very close. The only reason I got 16 is because Puka Williams is so dangerous last year. I mean, 200-plus yards against Oklahoma and Norman. It'll be interesting to see what he does under the rain. But I say Kennedy Brooks gets 2 touchdowns. Trey Sermon gets 2 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts gets another rushing touchdown. And Ramondre Stevenson keeps adding to his tally. He's already got 4 this year. He's going to make it 5 on
We've
Saturday.
seen him earlier and earlier in games. Like last game, we saw him earlier, second quarter in the split back with Kennedy Brooks.
Yeah.
Which was, I was like, heck yeah.
And
Ramondre.
after Brooks's injury scare, obviously maybe some rust or maybe some little soreness.
Yeah.
Here's an opportunity for Ramondre Stevenson to step up, get some more touches.
Take advantage.
Good news for Sooner Nation though on that Kennedy Brooks will play tomorrow. Which
Yeah,
is,
he will. He
which
will.
is important and good to see.
How
after
much he
the
plays
hit
has yet to be seen.
Yeah, after they hit, it wouldn't be surprising, to your point, if he didn't play a lot. I have Oklahoma as well, 55-10. The spread is 33. While we're talking about gambling, I imagine that'll be easily covered. The over/under will be interesting at 67.5. That's a lot of points. I guess and if the weather continues to be like this, I can't imagine that people are going to be really excited to be, scoring a whole lot, at least on the Kansas side of the football. But 55-10, Oklahoma takes it.
Yeah, my final score is going to have to be in favor of Oklahoma, of course. I don't think anyone here has any kind of doubt about that.
Sure.
It's gonna go down to 52-10. I didn't mean to fall so close to
Okay.
what
Great minds think alike.
my friend William Soule here. I'm going to have to go 52-10. It's a shame that the over-under is set as high as it is because in those situations I like to bet when both teams are going to be scoring a lot of points, and I don't think that's going to be the case with Kansas tomorrow.
I have to agree with all of you. I think Oklahoma's going to take it. No big shock there. I think they're going to take it 59-13. I think the only reason why the Jayhawks might put 13 up is because of the weather conditions. It's wet. They have the home field advantage. Yada, yada, yada. It doesn't really matter because they're not going to win. And that's really what it comes down to it. You know, you can allow a little wiggle room, obviously, but I think OU is going to blow it out of the water. They show up every week. I mean, the offense is Oklahoma offense. You know, it's number 1 for a reason. So
no doubt.
I think it's funny how we said not to look past Kansas, and then we
And
just
then we
look
are,
past
yeah,
Kansas.
well, we can.
We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, we don't have to.
We have no responsibilities once this show goes off air. We're just gonna hang out. Like we're gonna get some dinner maybe, but like the football team's gotta be ready to go.
Burgers for sure after this. Burgers for sure. I'm starving. Well, anyways, that's all we've got from here in Lawrence. Again, it's raining. It's cold. But that's all we have for now. We're going to toss it back to the studio team, and they're going to round it out for us. They're going to pick them like they always do. And we'll see you after the break.
We're winding down here on Game Day U. Brooke Mursky, Kimber Ball, Shannon Earhart, and Cal Day just a few minutes before we sign off and turn our attention to a jam-packed day across college football. Before we do that, let's discuss a few of those games with particularly big implications. Okay, now first off, the first matchup is a clash between Big Ten fringe contenders looking to make a statement. Kirk Ferentz and Iowa bring their old school style of football to the Big House and go up against Michigan. Iowa comes in with a perfect 4-0 record, and the Hawkeyes have very quietly been one of the most dominant defensive teams in the country, which means the pressure is on Michigan's Shea Patterson to break the will of the Iowa defense. The Wolverines looked atrocious 2 weeks ago in a loss to 8th-ranked Wisconsin, but bounced back strong with a 52-0 demolition of Rutgers. Cal, let's start with you. Who takes the victory in this one?
Ooh, this will be a really good one. This is what I'm looking forward to. I think the last time I watched Michigan and Iowa play, Iowa knocked off Michigan back when Michigan was contending for the college football playoff. This could be a revenge game. This time it's in Ann Arbor. There's a lot on the line early. Michigan needs to get back on track. They had a nice game for confidence last week against Rutgers. I'm going to roll with the Michigan Wolverines here in this one. I think that they're at home. It's an early game. I think that Iowa has not necessarily been tested. I'm concerned with their schedule, even though we think they're a pretty good defensive team. They did have a good win over Iowa State, but I'm going to go with Michigan. I think that Michigan gets back on the right track, so I'll go with the Wolverines and Harbaugh and company to get a win, maybe quiet the pressure that's been put on them recently.
I'd have to agree with you. I was down on Jim Harbaugh earlier, but I agree. I do think that Michigan is going to take the win. They did win, as Brooke said earlier, 52-0 against the Rutgers, which is pretty solid. And Iowa actually only beat the Rutgers 30-0, so they have something going for them, I think. Shea Patterson, who I'm a fan of, he hasn't been doing the best, but I think in this rivalry game, I think it's going to be a good game, and I think that Michigan's going to take the win.
We are unanimous here. I'm also taking Michigan. I said earlier, I think people have been a little quick to write this Michigan team off and to say that Jim Harbaugh's done and all that. And because I still like Shea Patterson. I still think Shea Patterson's a fine quarterback. I think you can get a lot done with him. I don't think he's going to take you to the playoff or take you to a national championship, but I think he can take you deep into the Big 12. Like I said, they did lose to Wisconsin. I said earlier, it's not like they lost to nobody. Like, Wisconsin's a very, very good team. I think a lot of people would probably say would be in the top 5 right now if you were just looking off what's happened this season. So I don't hold that that Wisconsin loss against Michigan as much as it seems like other people are, but I think the home field advantage is going to be huge. I said this when we were talking about that Notre Dame game earlier. It is very, very difficult to go to Ann Arbor and win in the Big House. It's a tough place to win. It's a rocking crowd. Doesn't matter if they're coming off a win or a loss. They're going to be crazy. They don't want to see their team lose at home. I think the home field advantage is what pushes Michigan over and takes their win today.
I think we forget, too, that Wisconsin and Michigan are, like, the biggest rivals ever, especially in the Big Ten. So
Michigan and
Ohio State.
Okay, fine, whatever.
It's a good rivalry.
I think it's a very solid
game.
rivalry. And, I grew up in the North, so I would always watch Michigan, and Wisconsin hit it off, and it's always been a big game.
It's one Wisconsin's going to always get up for a little bit more than Michigan. They're always going to get up a little bit more for it because when Michigan sees Wisconsin on the schedule, it's Wisconsin again, whatever. But when Wisconsin sees Michigan on the schedule, they're getting excited. They know that that's their chance to make a statement, and they did. I don't think that can be held to say Michigan is, just done for the year. I really think they can come in and beat this Iowa team today.
Well, one interesting point, Iowa is 4-0 on the season. The last time they went 4-0, they finished the season started the season 9-0 and went on to have a Big Ten championship game aspirations. So this will be a big game, kind of a separation game for Michigan. If they lose this one, they could all but be eliminated from college football playoff contention. For Iowa, the hopes to keep a big game with Wisconsin further down the line to win their division in the Big Ten. So it'll be a big game, lots of stakes.
I can't wait. I think this is one of the best games on the slate today. I'm so excited.
Yeah, they have roughly the same scoring points too, so I think it's going to be a good game.
I think it's a 3.5 point line.
Aggressive.
Yeah.
I'll take Michigan on that.
Oh, yeah.
There's your free money for the day. Bet Michigan. Take the
Bet the mortgage.
Well, now let's go to what could be the biggest game of the day. The Tigers walk into the swamp as Auburn will try to slow down Florida's rejuvenated offense. Kyle Trask has been a revelation since taking over at quarterback for an injured Felipe Franks, and he'll look to keep his Gators on track to the SEC title game. Now for Auburn, there's a logjam of 5 SEC teams sitting at 5-0, but the Tigers already have a strength of schedule edge with their win over Oregon. Should Bo Nix lead his team to another victory, this Auburn team may vault into the top 5. So who comes out on top in Gainesville? Kyle, we'll start with you.
Oh, this is such a special game. Everybody in the SEC plays 7 of the same 8 conference games every year. So it's different to see this matchup between 2 different divisions of 2 different teams. This will be a very good one. Auburn has been one of the most impressive teams early on in the college football slate. It's hard to argue if you would put them anything but the #1 team in the country. But I'm going to go with the big-time decision here of going with the Florida Gators. Because one reason, it comes down to coaching. In a big game, I trust Dan Mullen over Gus Malzahn. I think Dan Mullen is one of the best coaches in college football, and even though they've lost their starter in Felipe Franks, they still have a solid defense led by defensive coordinator Todd Grantham. I think that Florida gets the win at home. The Swamp, we talk about tough places to play. The Swamp is one of the toughest places to play in college football. So Auburn's a trendy pick today. A lot of people aren't really expecting a lot from Florida, I think. But, game day's in town. It's enough to get the crowd going. So go with the Gators.
Top, I like it, Cal.
I have to counter it. I think that Auburn is going to win. Florida's playing with a replacement quarterback, if you don't remember. And I think that Auburn has won their past 2 games with over 50 points per game, which is pretty darn good. I'm not going to lie. And they're also 6th in the nation for rushing yards. And I don't think that Florida is going to be able to hold off Auburn and Bo Nix, who I know he hasn't had the most impressive stats, but he's a pretty solid quarterback as a freshman and knows how to get those clutch moments, I guess, and get in there and lead the team to victory. So I'm going to say Auburn.
See, I'm also going to take Auburn, and I disagree with you about Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix has been great this year. He's coming off his best game of the season last year. His offensive line looked a lot better. Now, this Florida defensive line is going to be the best that Auburn has seen so far this year. That's for sure. But I really expect Bo Nix to keep a level head, to stay focused in there. I think it's going to be a little bit of a coming out party for Bo Nix. I like what you said about Florida. That crowd's going to be wild down there. But I think Auburn's a good enough team that they can overcome that strict home field advantage. I think they're well coached enough. I think they're disciplined enough that factor doesn't kind of make as big of a deal as, say, other games like the Iowa-Michigan game.
It's for sure going to be a challenge, I think, for both teams, especially having a strong Auburn defense and a strong Florida offense that
I'm not expecting
solid for both.
I'm not expecting huge points, honestly. I'm expecting this to be a pretty middle tier scoring game.
Yeah.
Not exactly low scoring, but in the 20s-ish.
Well, it will come down, I think, to a battle of the defenses. Auburn has one of the best defenses, in my estimation, in college football.
I agree.
Yeah.
But what it's going to come down to, I think, if Florida's defensively going to try to scheme against Anthony Schwartz, if they can contain him and limit his big play ability, I think that Florida has a really good shot to come out with a win today. But the reality for both of these teams is the schedule does not get much easier. So this is a big time. Yeah, this is a big time game for both squads today, with a lot of more big games looming as we get deeper.
Huge playoff implications.
It really is.
Huge playoff
and
implications.
SEC title implications
which
too.
it has more playoff implications. I mean, this is one of the most important games of the year so far.
Yeah,
It'll be fun to watch.
I'm excited. Can't wait.
It's going to be impressive.
All right,
wait.
guys. Well, how about a little Pac-12 action after dark for our third matchup? Oregon hosts Cal, and no, I'm not talking Cal Day. I'm talking the University of California, Berkeley. They dropped out of the AP poll after last week's loss to Arizona State. They'll have to play this game without starting quarterback Chase Garbers, who's out with an injury, in a Pac-12 that essentially, as Parker Thune would say, cannibalized itself before September was even over with. There's no longer any room for error, and the Ducks appear to be the conference's best hope as far as a college football playoff berth is concerned. Here's a stat for you. The last touchdown the Ducks defense gave up was that iconic Bo Nix pass back in week 1. How's that for vengeance? We'll find out tonight if the stellar defense play continues. But Cal, you'll have to be picking the Golden Bears, right?
Yeah, I've got to. It'd be wrong to not go with Cal.
With your namesake.
That's what we're going to do right now. We're going to go with Cal in the upset. Here's one thing you should know. Justin Wilcox, the head coach of California, has built his team on the promise of being a good defensive football team, and that's exactly what they are. Evan Weaver is the #1 tackler in college football. He averages nearly 16 tackles a game. Now, they will be starting Devin Monster today, his second true game after not a hot performance in the Arizona State game last week. But this is an under-the-radar game that not a lot of people are paying attention to. And Oregon, yeah, they haven't given up a touchdown in a while, but it's because they've been playing some not-so-great competition. Now, California is tough. They're a physical team. I think they will have enough. They've only held teams to 9 touchdowns on the year. I think they have enough to go into Eugene, Oregon, and stun the nation and ultimately eliminate the Pac-12 from college football playoff contention. So watch out for those Golden Bears today.
Cal, I'm sorry. I have to go against you. I respect your name. I get it. But Oregon is going to win this game. They've won 9 out of the last 10 meetings. So I don't see Cal coming out on top on this one. I'm not going to call it. But Chase Garbers, as you said, is out and David Monster is stepping in. So I'm sorry, Cal. I just don't think that they're going to do it. Oregon's they've been on a roll. They're ranked 14th, and they've won so many of the last games. 3 games. They've won the past 3 games. So I think that Oregon's going to win. They have a solid team.
They doubted Auburn.
Well, make no mistake, Cal Day, absolute winner. Cal Golden Bears, not so much. I'm taking Oregon today. Cal has looked improved this year, and Justin Wilcox is clearly getting that team to where they want to be. But Justin Wilcox, so far in his career, away from Cal, 0-6 in his last meetings with Oregon. Has not beat Oregon since 2009, dating back to his old jobs. And that's his alma mater too, so that's got to hurt. But Cal does currently rank 3 in pass defense in the Pac-12. They haven't faced a quarterback like Justin Herbert yet. Justin Herbert still very, very high on most people's NFL draft boards. Oregon, I think a lot of people expected them to stumble a little bit this season after they came out of the gates with that loss to Auburn and Bo Nix. But I still think they look like a strong team. I think it's in Oregon. I think that's huge. I think this is one where home field advantage does play a big role. So I'm going with Oregon, not decisively, but by a comfortable margin.
It could be a defensive showdown. We'll just have to
stick
absolutely.
Around.
Well, Cal is like a 15-point underdog for the spread, so
take the under.
Can I just say I love talking about
Cal
Cal with Cal.
It's my favorite.
It might be a new segment on the show. I don't know.
Cal new
segment. I like it.
We should talk about him every week.
I agree. More Cal on the show.
Our pick'em segment is over, but I want you guys to tell me, who do you think will upset this week?
Well, there's a lot of good matchups on the day today, and then one of them is coming out of the American Athletic Conference. It's going to pit one of the best offenses in the American Conference against one of the best defenses in the American Conference. But today I'm going with Tulsa to upset SMU, and that's for a couple reasons. SMU, like we said, they're ranked in the first time since they got the death penalty all those years
Kemper's
ago.
pissed.
I know we might need to get him a water or something, but Tulsa quietly has a really impressive schedule so far this season. They're 2-2. Now, that's not a great record, but they did have a nice win over Wyoming last week, a team that beat Missouri pretty well. And then they actually led Oklahoma State in their matchup at the halftime earlier this year. They didn't go on to win it. Tulsa has a stingy defense, and they have a solid quarterback. I think they go on the road and beat what Kemper calls the #1 team in Texas. So the number 3 team in Oklahoma upsets the #1 team in Texas tonight. Tulsa over SMU.
Oh, Cal, ye of little faith.
Do I let you go off?
Ye of little faith. I'm telling you, man, the Pony Express is back.
We'll see.
Pony Express is back. 5-0, first time since '83. That doesn't happen by accident.
There's a hurricane watch. There's a hurricane watch in Dallas, and it's the Tulsa Golden Hurricane.
My goodness.
Okay. So my pick is going to be Tech over OSU. It's in Lubbock, so I think it's going to be a solid game, and it's an 11 a.m. kickoff. So I think that OSU could come out a little bit sluggish, maybe. That's my take on it. And OSU, honestly, against Kansas State last week, just wasn't impressive. It wasn't something that I really enjoyed watching. So I think that Tech could really pull off the win against OSU. It's a hot take, I know, but
note to self: do not gamble with Shannon.
Okay. I think it's going to happen. When it happens, you're going to be crying in your bed. I'm sorry.
Oh, I won't cry
I'll
if
bring
I
you
see
some
the Pokes go
tissues.
down, that's for sure. No, I just think that Oklahoma State has too much firepower. And, of course, Tech has their backup quarterback. it's just not going to be.
But is Mike Gundy's head, is it on right?
I don't know. It could be.
I know he was a little distracted earlier this week.
I don't
so.
think his head's looked right in a couple of years with that mullet, but could be a bad night to be a tortilla in Lubbock. We'll see.
I am pro mullet, just for the record. For me, my upset, I'm going. A lot of people might think this is just kind of out of nowhere. I'm going Stanford over Washington today. It's in Palo Alto, so I really like Stanford here. Washington has not beat Stanford since 2007 in Stanford. So I think that this could be come out of nowhere and surprise a lot of people. David Mills last week had 245 yards and 2 touchdowns against Oregon State. That's a good comeback win after Stanford's had a pretty sluggish year without Bryce Love. I think this could be a good chance for the Pac-12 to show that that conference has a little bit of depth. The key here is that they've just got to keep the offense going consistently. They can't let the offense go stagnant like they did a couple weeks ago against USC when they just shut down late. They've got to keep going for 4 quarters. They've got to play 4 complete quarters of football. But I think they can do it.
Yeah, I think the Pac-12 is wide open. So
the Pac-12 is so wide open. I mean, Washington, Stanford, Oregon. I think any of those teams, honestly.
They're all solid teams. It could go either way.
Yeah, I mean,
which way.
You never know. Stanford could just get torched by Jacob Eason today, like a lot of people have this year, because he's been great.
Well, guys, we have a little bit of time. I want to know a word, an adjective. What do you think is going to describe today's game, Oklahoma against Kansas?
Impressive. I think the Sooners will win handedly. I think all we want to do is not catch them sleeping or paying attention to next week. So.
All right.
I'm going to have to go with awesome. I think it's going to be a really fun game.
I'm going to go with surprising. Don't sleep on the Jayhawks. Don't sleep on Les Miles.
I'm hibernating, by the way. I'm hibernating.
That's it for us at the desk at Game Day U. Thanks for joining us. It's the best day of the week. It is game day. See you later. Peace out.